Live from Los Angeles, welcome back to Good Morning LaLa, and I am so honored to welcome Julian David Stone to the show, finally allowing some cameras.
Look at this gorgeous book.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
An outlaw and a rock and roll photographer. I bet you have seen it all.
I saw a lot. This was a fun period of my life in the early 80s with a lot of crazy adventures, and the goal was just to get as many of the photos and the adventures in the book.
You know, what is it about you that they allowed to capture the magic? Because they don't let just anybody into this world.
Well, this was part of my story. I wasn't invited into the world. I decided to find my own way in. I was about 17 years old, and I went to see the Ramones, and I wanted to take pictures of them, and showed up with my bag over my shoulder and was sort of laughed at by the bouncer, who pointed to a sign that said no cameras allowed. And I decided in that moment, I think there's a way I can get around this. Went back to my car and sort of hid the equipment on my body, went into the show, took pictures of the Ramones, and after that was hooked. Shot about 10,000 pictures over the next few years, all of it by smuggling equipment into shows.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
So I'm dying to know, okay, you've seen this all, you've written scripts, you have shows, you have also, what's the biggest takeaway from Hollywood? What would you say if you just sum it up and what's the takeaway?
Well, that's sort of the Hollywood part of it sort of came later. When I was doing this, this was all rock and roll, and it was a hell of a lot of fun. That would be my biggest takeaway. And sort of going into, you're talking about being inspirational, what I found when I was doing it was the bigger the challenge, the more I decided I was going to find a way to get the equipment in, because I started getting more aggressive in the amount of equipment. So my inspiration was how do I foil security, frankly, and get this equipment in. This is before digital. We're talking about 35mm cameras that were huge. So I started taping things on my body. I modified a coat so that it had secret compartments to hide equipment.
So, so you're telling us that your whole career is based on crimes.
Well, that's why he calls himself an outlaw right here on the book.
Exactly. Well, at the heart of rock and roll is rebellion, and I felt this was my way of being part of that rebellion, because before the photography, I wanted to be a rock star, and that lasted about 2 seconds. Pretty much the first time I picked up a guitar and realized I had no musical ability. So I found another way, and this was my way into the world.
So in capturing some of these true rock stars, what do you think is the common denominator, that je ne sais quoi, that magic they have about them?
That's a great question. You know what I would say it is? It's the confidence. When you go see Prince at his peak, or U2, or the Police, you can just tell that these are people that are very, very sure of themselves. And I have a picture in here of Sting, of the Police, at Shea Stadium in 1983 at the height of his career, and he's standing in front of 70,000 people shirtless. And I was like, you know what? That's a rock star. That's the definition of a rock star, to be like that.
So beautiful.
So,
clearly, you had a ton of confidence to begin with, but did you find that confidence that they had rub off on you? Did you find it rubbing off?
I found it more that I wanted, the better they were, the more I wanted to capture pictures of them, and the more I felt a responsibility that the better the performance there was, the more I felt I needed to get great pictures. Yeah. That's how it rubbed off on me. Seeing Prince, I saw him during Purple Rain tour at his peak, and just, it was unbelievable. As great as he was through his whole career, at this moment in time, everything was Prince. That was the closest to Beatlemania that I ever saw, personally, and I felt it came through in my pictures from those shows.
What secrets have you discovered about getting great pictures? Anything you've discovered along the way?
Well, that's a good question. Just shoot as much as you can, and practice a lot. That's something I found the more I shot. Don't only shoot rock stars, shoot smaller bands, because you get better, so that when you have the bigger shows, you have your skills. You have better practice. Absolutely.
We're such a visual culture, especially now with Instagram and videos, everything. And for this, Instagram is so bad because people do the same shots over and over again. What is your favorite photography? Is it just capturing that moment of just where you're just seeing someone at their peak of their art, or what is your favorite?
I was always trying to find a moment in the show that I felt defined who this performer was. One of my favorite pictures I have of Prince is I have him sort of in midair doing splits, in midair touching his feet, and to me that defines him, because not only is he doing all of this, he's doing it in heels. So I was like, there it is, he's in midair, he's gonna, with these beautiful platform shoes, and he's gonna stick that landing, and that's Prince,
Wow.
Which artists did you enjoy photographing the most? Was there someone that really spoke to you?
Like I mentioned, Prince, U2, seeing U2. I saw them in Ireland in the early 80s, and that was pretty special because that was just as they were starting to become what they are now, sort of international superstars. And I saw a show there where it was a very intimate show because they're from Dublin, and they had just gone out on their first sort of world tour, and they'd come back and were playing back in Ireland. It had a very hometown feel, and that was a very special experience. Sort of, I felt like I think I probably was the only American in the crowd, and I really felt it.
So how did you stay undercover? I mean, after you've seen tens of thousands of shows, aren't they saying this guy at some point?
You try to keep your, I as I said, I had sort of big coats and stuff I modified. You keep your equipment hidden until you take the pictures. So I would literally whip it out, take a picture, put it back in, and that was the way to do it. And sometimes it didn't always work. I was shooting, you showed the picture of Joan Jett. Actually, it was that show. I was shooting Joan Jett in a club. And sometimes, you had to stay aware during the show. And all of a sudden I noticed there's a roadie on stage looking at me and pointing at me like, I see you. And I was like, well, I'm in this packed club. I'm safe. He's not going to get me. Well, I was wrong. He jumped off the stage, came running through the crowd right at me. This guy, and this is a big guy. He comes tearing at me. I get my camera equipment hidden away. He takes down the guy next to me.
Oh, wow. Relief.
Takes this guy down, and I just like, okay, I'm just going to walk away. And so didn't all that, to answer your question, it didn't always get away with it. So
Wow.
So tell us about everything in here, what they can expect for this to be on their coffee table.
Sure. So there's 250 pages. This is all photos that have never been seen before of Prince, David Bowie, U2, The Police, Elvis Costello, Chuck Berry, the Ramones, you name it. If they were big in the 80s, they're in there.
Okay,
So,
I'm taking this one.
Right?
If you love
Rock and roll.
man, you need this. And it's so, I love the colors. It definitely, people are going to like this one it's all about the colors on the cover to have it go with all the decorations. So I love it. Where can people find it?
you can get it at Amazon, or if you want signed copies, because a lot of people have asked me about that, you can get them at my website, which is juliandavidstone.com.
Julian, you've captured some absolute icons, but what is it that you want to be known for?
That's a good question. That I did good work. I'm still, most of my work is in the film business, and I'm still, working away in that, and that people enjoyed my work and were inspired by it.
It's also, you're also a testament in dreaming really big. I remember once getting snuck backstage of a Mariah Carey concert because I was kind of obsessed when I was like 20. It was ridiculous. And they mistook me for a GQ writer. So I would get to do an interview. But that was the end of my dream. That was the end of it. And so if I had only dreamt bigger and had an eye for photography, maybe.
So did you interview her?
Incredible. I did, yeah. yeah. It was a total accident, though. It wasn't like, I just didn't dream big enough. So I love that. When you initially snuck those cameras in the first time, did you have a dream that you would be doing it for 10 years, or was it just a one-time thing?
It was a one-time thing, but then I became obsessed with it. It was so much fun, and I was so happy with the pictures. And then part of this there's not just photos in here, but there's the stories more of my encounters with roadies, and also the journey that I went on, because I did reach a point after a few years, it started to take off. I started to go pro, because of the pictures were good enough that I started getting hired, and I had to make a choice. Do I follow photography, or do I follow the film business? And I chose the film business, and it's a debate which whether I took the right fork. But
we feel that you did.
Definitely.
Well, thank you so much for sharing these iconic images with us,
thank you.
and for living the life of an outlaw you did. You are an absolute rock star.
Well, thank you.
Stay tuned. We'll be back with more on Good Morning La La Land.
So much, brother.